What's up, y'all? It's your boy JTMM, aka Just 10 More Minutes, aka the Freaking 10. And as I promised, corrupt file or not, I'm re-recording it. Obviously, the first reactions won't be as intense since I did simply react to it already. But I still have a lot of opinions on this that I want to share. And then get your thoughts in the comment section, just like we always do. You know, it's why I enjoy doing the history, not just learning the history part, but, you know, always give this great perspective of things that I may not think about, just like in the songs that I do. So I look forward to this one. In the comment section, I'll tell you, I'm learning these actions. You know, quite honestly, the first thing I did after I posted that delayed video was went and asked my wife, who's a teacher. Now, she doesn't teach history. But hey, did you know this happened? She's like, no, I had no clue. And so that was one of those things that it just, I guess it made me feel better in the sense that I wasn't alone and not knowing about this. But yeah, I've got a lot of opinions on this. So with that being said, let's switch it up. Let's take a look.
Here on the Sabaton History Channel, we have done one or more episodes dedicated to almost every single song that has appeared as a regular track on one of Sabaton's albums that deal with military history. We haven't done everything from Metalizer, basically, right? But, and sure, there's some bonus tracks and preludes and things, but almost every single song that's a regular song on a Sabaton album except one.
And that is Firestorm.
I also point out in the first reaction of Joachim almost looked nervous, right? On this video. I don't know if it was just how sensitive the topic was, but he definitely didn't look as, you know, normal and cheery as he normally does.
The end of July 1943. Hamburg's firefighters have spent the last couple of days trying to stem the damage from British bombing raids. High explosives have not just ruined many buildings, but have also torn craters into the streets, which has made rescue attempts difficult. But although the water reserves are running low, it seems like they'll manage. But then, on the night of July 27th, a fleet of 730 British bombers appears over the city. More than 2,300 tons of bombs are dropped in just 1 hour, this time including 17,000 incendiary bombs. Major fires break out all over the city, which soon merge together in a storm of fire.
And the one thing I want to note about this, and it's always tough to pause in the right place with Indy because you never know when he's really kind of ending speaking. So, 2,300 tons, right? And then on top of that, 17,000 incendiary devices. And the biggest problem that I have with this is, I talked about it. I was actually very animated when I first recorded this. I've calmed down since then. It's infuriating, and it's a double-edged sword in the sense of, yes, they had attacked other cities and done the same thing with no regard, and there's a return for that and a payment for that. But my whole thing this morning when I was first reacting to this was, I was hoping we'd be better than that. Now, with that being said, I have learned in other videos of some shady stuff that went on that I'm definitely not proud of just as an American. Whether we were allies to it or engaged in it, that I don't know that anybody would go, oh yeah, that's great. You know, I mean, war is war and war is hell. And there's things and deals that are made that aren't pretty in order to gain an advantage. This is one I truly struggle with.
Structures combust under the immense heat of up to 800 degrees Celsius. The strong summer winds begin to drive the inferno through the streets, and the heat drives them to hurricane speeds of 240 kilometers an hour. Craving oxygen, the firestorm sucks at the air with such force that buildings collapse and trees are uprooted from the ground. People are sucked into the flames and immediately incinerated. Thousands of others die slowly from carbon monoxide poisoning in shelters. Hamburg burns. The flames destroy 12 square miles and kill more than 18,500 people in just that night alone. By August 3rd, after 2 more raids, 60% of Hamburg has been burned and more than 35,000 of its inhabitants are dead. The Germans are stunned, dazed with disbelief. For British Bomber Command, it is a resounding success. The scale of the conflagration and the ensuing firestorm are not an accident or a byproduct of the bombing. It has worked just as intended. Hamburg had been number 1 on the target list for well over a year. British scientists had been studying the meteorological conditions and the wind speeds in and out of the city for months. High winds would be the best catalyst for the firestorm they sought to unleash. Questions revolved around how many fires needed to be started until it became an uncontrollable force of its own, one that would ultimately overwhelm the German firefighters.
And this is where my absolute, and I already feel it building again, fury began internally. Because, again, as I said, war is hell. And, you would ask, well, I condemn both sides of it, right? I mean, when you're bombing innocent people, I don't care what side of the coin you're on, Axis allies, good, bad, right, wrong, evil, good, whatever you want to say. I don't care, right? These are people that you don't know what their thought was, right? And by just absolutely annihilating an entire city in one freaking night, 60% of it on fire and 18,000 in one night. I mean, you're no better than what happened, during the war. That's not strategic. That is a terror bombing. A strategic terror bombing. Going after innocent lives and not a military installation, and trying to stop your enemy from further advancing within the war and leaving us civilians out of it. I'm sorry. If you want to unsubscribe, hey, great. Okay. I don't say that kindly. I get it. But I have a real problem with it. And I said it's a double-edged sword, because in their eyes, they thought they were doing right in order to, make them bow down. But you could carry out that same number of strikes against military installations and such, that you could do the same type of damage and wipe out the military, not civilians. And it's when the civilians get involved in our attack that I have a huge problem with it. And that goes whether it was them doing it to us or us versus them. I'm not picking a side and saying we're the only guilty party in this, right? This is one of those shady things that I think is just horrible that took place. Just absolute horrible decision.
Bombing trials were scheduled, and models of the city's urban areas were built to accurately study the vulnerability of German houses to fire. The main target of the incendiary raid was to be the most densely packed residential area of the city, close to its center. At first, a group of Pathfinder bombers would drop aluminized strips to create false echoes on the German radar screens, right? Shielding the coming planes from coordinated fighter attacks. A second group would drop small anti-personnel explosives with delayed action triggers to intimidate the rescue efforts. Some were timed for between 3 and 10 minutes after impact. Others would explode if they were hit by a jet of water. Then the main force would arrive and drop incendiaries like magnesium bombs mixed with an oil base. The Mark II incendiary bomb was a deadly mixture of white phosphorus and benzol gel. Everything worked as planned in creating the perfect firestorm. Hamburg was burnt to ashes.
It still gets me very angry and emotional. It's just I try to look at everything from different perspectives, right? And go, okay, if this, then that. But at the core of my belief, when you talk about civilians and the innocent and targeting to where more people would be killed, innocent lives, whether you believed the people as a whole, it goes back to Vermont, right? Were they men on a leash, or were they people that lost their way? These were people that were not even in that category. These were civilians. Yes. Did civilians work at the armories and doing that? Yes. But you have to have a job, right? You do, in order to make a living. And if that was their job, that was their job. But, to target residential areas with these kinds of weapons, knowing that you were going to wipe out innocent lives, bugs the ever-living hell out of me. On the flip side of that, again, as I said, war is held. They were attacking us. We were attacking them. I can only speak on what my personal stance is. It really pisses me off. And if that stand pissed you off and you want to unsubscribe, hey, I get it. I understand. I'm just truly giving my reaction to it. My reaction is it pisses me off. Obviously, we're dealing with the past, right? We can't change anything about it. We can only move forward. Obviously, these days, it's very much more strategic. So it's very hard to then, try to take that on and say, well, we can't do that anymore. When in fact, a lot of the times, at least I'll speak from an American side, a lot of the strikes tend to be geared more towards military installations. They do make errors, as we've seen on the news before. But if stuff like that happens, there is some strategy to it versus, actually looking and saying, okay, how can we wipe out, an entire city? At least that's my hope, right? I mean, that's all we don't know what goes on in those meetings. We're not there. I would hope those are the conversations, but nothing like this.
British Prime Minister Winston Churchill had promised Soviet High Command a year earlier that although an invasion of Europe was not yet possible, they would continue to attack the Germans at every possible occasion. At first, the sporadic bombing raids against German cities had been a way for the Royal Air Force to show defiance. When they happened, the Germans had to use valuable military and administrative resources to fight them off, and these were desperately needed at the battlefronts. But now, the British were determined to turn those raids into a strategic concept, one that would break not only Germany's military capabilities, but break the population's spirit. And Churchill had just the right man at hand to fulfill such a goal. Air Marshal Arthur Harris had been appointed Commander-in-Chief of the British Royal Air Force as part of the new Area Bombing Directive in February 1942. Harris already had a reputation as a ruthless and uncompromising leader who had personal contempt for the Germans and the totalitarianism of the Nazis. He fully expected air power to win the war, and possibly even avoid a costly invasion of Europe against entrenched fanatics, as he called them. If he just had a fleet of 1,000 bombers, Harris argued, he could reduce any major German city to rubble. His proposed mass carpet bombing campaigns would shorten the war, and the more ruthlessly they attacked, the more it would save Allied lives in future. Harris proposed that instead of attacking single factories or military targets, they should bomb the urban centers of Germany's cities. For him, the tightly packed worker districts were valuable targets. Total war was the people's war. Each industrial worker was as important to the war effort as the soldier at the front was. If the bombers targeted urban areas, they would affect several industries at once, too, either through absenteeism or the death of the workers. If they wanted to win this war, Harris argued, they would have to kill a lot of Germans either way. Dehousing the Germans was also the most likely way to break their will to resist, as losing one's home was considered to have the most demoralizing effect. The Nazis entered this war under the rather childish delusion that they were going to bomb everybody else and nobody was going to bomb them. At Rotterdam, London, Warsaw, and half 100 other places, they put that rather naive theory into operation. They sowed the wind, and now they are going to reap the whirlwind. Cologne, Lübeck, Rostock. These are only just the beginning. We cannot send 1,000 bombers at a time over Germany every time as yet, but the time will come when we can do so. Arthur Harris, June 1942.
So, this is that other side of the coin. Is obviously cities were being attacked. And innocent lives on both sides were lost. So that's that other side of the coin. I don't like either side of it. It's just, it's infuriating to learn this. And you know, when it's always been taught to us, you know, of how successful we were against the, you know, Germans, that you know, Axis powers, whatever you want to call them, in the wars, but it was never really spoken about things like this and targeting civilians. Again, it's war, it's hell, and they're doing it to us. That's where I would expect that rise up to be better than that and just take out the military. You know, military bunkers, military installations. If it was against those sections where tanks and planes were being manufactured, I can't. That is part of a military build, and you're stopping it that way. That innocent people are still going to be killed because they're doing their job. But targeting a residential district is terror. It's murder, plain and simple. And I think where my anger comes from is not knowing this for all these years, just of how shady some of this stuff was going on. That's all.
Such biblical terms were not accidental. The attack on Hamburg was codenamed Operation Gomorrah for the apocalyptic scenery it would produce. Like the British propaganda said, Harris also stood behind the fact that the incendiary attacks on German cities were not simple acts of terror bombing. They were retaliation, acts of revenge for what the Luftwaffe had done during the Battle of Britain and the Blitz. The bombing of Coventry in November 1940 was seen as the example of German cruelty. Although the Luftwaffe's aim had been to cripple the local aircraft industry, much of its heavy bombs and incendiaries had fallen upon the residential areas, causing a high civilian death toll and the destruction of the city. Harris and British Bomber Command would now, as the war turned, Coventry German cities as well. In the first
And that's, again, that double side of it, right? And I talked about that this morning in a lot more passionate manner because I was really pissed off. That's where I say it's a double edge, because obviously there was a strike first and you want that retaliation, you want that revenge. Man, it's ugly shit. That there's no other way to put it.
First 4 months of 1945, British bombers dropped 4 times the bomb tonnage on German cities that the Luftwaffe had dropped during its 10-month-long campaign against Britain. On the night of February 13th, Dresden burned. 800 Lancaster bombers dropped more than 2,600 tons of bombs on the mostly undefended city. Nearly half of the bombs were incendiary, and more than 15 square miles of the city was devastated by fire. Dresden's historic center burned to ashes as more than 75,000 houses succumbed to the firestorm. Over 25,000 people are estimated to have been killed that night. In Britain, people began to question such actions. Was this really justified? Was this not just terror against civilians? Dresden hadn't been a fortress city, nor did it have major war-related industries. Instead, it was full of refugees and evacuees fleeing the Eastern Front. But Harris wanted to see the city bombed because it would make the German administration in the sector collapse and would delay the transport of German troops to the front. It was war, after all. But even as the final phase of the war began and more cities burned, there was no sign of surrender. Not in Germany, not in Japan. The US had been confronted by the destructiveness of modern air power when Japanese naval aircraft attacked Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941. Actually, Harris lived in Washington, D.C. at the time and was busy closing a deal with the American aircraft industry as news of that air raid came in. Since the early 1930s, American military planners had foreseen the need for long-range bombers for a future war fought far from American shores. So they had been developed. While any retaliation was seen as a good thing, Tokyo itself was on the target list for retaliation bombing after the Doolittle raid of April 1942. That had little more than propaganda effect, similar to the initial British raids on the German Rhineland. But then, with Harris establishing a working relationship between the British and American air leaders, the U.S. Air Force began studying the efficiency of firebombing. The development of the B-29 Superfortress bomber pretty much embodied the possibility of destroying a city from the air. With a range of over 3,200 miles, that's over 5,000 kilometers, it could easily reach the Japanese homeland from American forward air bases, and each plane could deliver a bomb load of up to 20,000 pounds. That's over 9,000 kilos. Such a fleet would finally not only get revenge for Pearl Harbor, but do it 1,000-fold. By February 1945, they were ready, and U.S. Air Force General Curtis LeMay ordered the first large-scale bombing runs against Tokyo. By then, Japanese defensive capabilities had been very much diminished. Their air force barely existed anymore. The fleet was shattered, industry marginalized. Still, Tokyo refused to surrender, even after the first low-altitude raids began. Japanese people still went to work as their families grew accustomed to the daily air raids. Each night, they went to bed fully dressed to not waste time in case of an attack. But this was to little avail on the night of March the 9th. When 279 B-29 bombers appeared in the skies over the capital. In the darkness, at an altitude of just under 2,500 feet, they dropped more than 1,600 tons of bombs. Most of them were cluster bombs, each releasing several smaller napalm and oil-based incendiary bomblets. M47 incendiaries, a mix of gelled gasoline and white phosphorus, ignited as they dropped into the tightly packed residential areas. The ensuing conflagration was even more devastating than those in Germany. A firestorm was ignited as the columns and walls of flames were whipped through the streets. Since the Japanese used more wood in the construction of their buildings than Europeans, the devastation was more total. Large parts of the capital were simply obliterated by the flames, leaving more than 1 million people homeless. The numbers are still disputed, but somewhere between 88,000 and 200,000 people fell victim to the flames. In the end, it mattered little if such raids were justified or not. Firebombing gave way to a dangerous precedent. Such carpet bombing runs with high explosives and incendiaries did not just kill people, they incinerated them. They blew them to pieces. They deliberately asphyxiated them or burned them alive. It was another line crossed, yet another extreme of total war. When months later arguments raged about the ethical use of the atomic bomb, people began pointing fingers to Hamburg, to Dresden, to Tokyo. mass extinction was already here. The atom bomb, so an argument went, might actually be more humane.
Carpet-bombing cities and grinding them to dust. Able men and women will all be victims. Everyone will suffer in the wake of that attack. Bombers show no mercy. A land in ruin. Homes are turned to rubble when the airstrikes been approved. Facing the destruction, fear the black wings of death.
Now, this is a rather dark subject, of course, the carpet bombing and the Allied carpet bombing, which many people tend to forget. That's also a part of the war. But this is on The Art of War.
Yes.
This has to do with Sun Tzu.
Yes. He was ahead of his time with carpet bombings.
Yeah, he invented carpet bombing in ancient China.
Yes.
But they used actual carpets back then?
Yes.
They
I mean, it wasn't plane that were doing carpet bombing. They were on carpets, flying carpets and bombing.
See, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Can we get an illustration? No, we can't get an illustration of that.
But this is, and let me be clear. I get war, right? I get revenge. I get retaliation. And, that's why I'm not doing it, because that's just not in my wheelhouse of thought processes. I'm an analytical guy. And so, do I think anybody was going to reason with someone like Hitler? No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that at all. It's just, that's where, leaders take actions. And we as the people, I don't care if it was Germany. I don't care if it was Hiroshima, with any of the bombs that were used there. It's all just nasty, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it that people have to take such measures to get points across of what their belief is. And, I see the same thing happening today with these extreme political parties and the what's right and what's wrong, and you're going to do this, and no, we're going to do this, and that clash building and that festering. And that's, I truly think we're going to repeat some mistakes that were made not only within this country but worldwide as these two sides start to collide more. I don't think that extremism is going to go away. With that being said, watching this, don't get me wrong, I am not okaying for one side to do it and the other side not, and the other side doing it back. I think it's both wrong. Do you understand it? Yes. Eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, whatever you want to say it is. But we don't have to like it. We don't have to approve of it, right? And those are people that are making decisions at such higher level. And for, the military, my dad was in the military, after this. Luckily, he never, went through any of these things. But I get it. It's just, I freaking hate it. I really do. I still get worked up. I'm worked up again as I was when I first recorded this, because of just the sheer brutality and the evil it shows in humans to target that area. And again, it was done the other way. That's what makes this such a damn, not even a hard argument, just a damn difficult argument, because it's like, well, you did it first. Okay, so we're going to do it that way back to you. And I'm not about that. You slap me, I'm not going to hit you back. I'm going to look at you and confront you and ask you why. Right? Now, again, it's not simply asking why in a time of war. It just bugs me that they went to this level. It really does. And I these are one of those that I would have wished not to know, because it really just leaves a very bad taste in my mouth for the military. I mean, obviously the military then was confronted with a different problem when you're talking about, Germany and Hitler and things of that nature, or Pearl Harbor and things like that. But do we always need to try to swing a bigger stick? I mean, seriously, I don't know.
But what made you think of this to illustrate Sun Tzu?
Well, I think the chapter was something like Destruction by Fire, or I can't remember, one of the second to last chapter.
Okay.
In the art of...
I really wish he wouldn't have copied my beard. I mean, he shaved obviously before this video, but dude, don't copy me.
war, and the only thing the most fitting in modern military conflict was carpet bombing. I think that corresponded to that chapter.
Now, of course, he wasn't thinking of carpet bombing.
No.
Flaming arrows, I guess.
Yeah, destroy your opponent's supplies and you know everything in that manner.
And so many people actually forget about things like that. I know, on the World War II channel, now it's December 1941, and of course the war in the Pacific. Well, the U.S. is not neutral anymore, shall we say?
Yes.
But one thing that the Japanese did not do in the period when they had naval supremacy in South Pacific and Southeast Asia, it did not try to destroy the American supply lines or the connection between Australia and the U.S. or dominance in the Indian Ocean. It wasn't. They were more focused on their actual goals instead of, they had some mess ups in their high command. But they should have listened to Sun Tzu.
They should have, yes.
Because if your enemy has no supplies, eventually...
You're in trouble, yeah.
Yeah. And we said at the very, very beginning that this is the last of the regular album songs that we've done.
Yes.
Did you realize that?
Not until quite recently, actually.
And by quite recently, you mean when I said it?
Yes, actually.
Because I don't think Per had either when we were talking about which songs to do. This shooting, these are all the ones that we're doing like this month that you're seeing, which is why I have this bandage on my hand for like 7 weeks in a row, because it's just not healing. It's because I was attacked by fire. They destroyed my supply lines. It was terrible. But yeah, it was when I was going through the albums and stuff and thinking, we've done them all.
Man.
I mean, we've done some part 2s and part 3s and stuff. And you guys, I'm sure you're wondering, well, what's going to happen next? But you'll find out soon enough. And then I was thinking, well, why don't we go through Metalizer and do every song on that? But what would the history parts cover,
Oh.
Okay, pick a song. Pick a song on Metalizer.
We do have one that could work. Per screams Peter.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm gonna...
Did you guys hear that? That was Paris screaming Peter. He's off directing.
Yeah, I'm gonna kill him for it.
Okay.
No.
So if you'd like to play bass with Sabaton, now's your chance.
Now is your chance.
Hashtag Joachim killed Per. You have to have an A with 2 dots on your computer keyboard, though. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Nope.
Because then it'd just be par.
Yeah.
And that'd be silly.
You can't have that.
Oh, well. Easy come, easy go. Anyhow,
Yep.
back to the Metalizer. Okay, Peter.
I think it would be actually Burn Your Crosses, that song.
Okay.
It's about a man, sentenced to death for...
Okay, so I'll pause it there because, and I said this in the earlier one because when I tell y'all I was worked up in the first recording, I was livid. I've had more time to process it and really think about some of the points that I was making, and obviously I still feel very strongly in it, that's why I can laugh a little bit more with this and make the jokes, about the beard, that I actually didn't make on the first recording, simply because I've had more time to process. It still just rages in my mind of the justification of it, but we're talking different time, different mentality, different place altogether. And it's very hard to put yourself in that position. It's easy to look hindsight 2020 and say, no, don't do it. But I did process, and I even thought about myself after September 11th, and what my gut reaction was then. And the human side of you comes out with the rage and the anger and wanting that revenge. And that's where I just wish they would have handled it better. Right. And so, no, I still do think it's a terror bombing, a strategic terror bombing when you target innocent civilians. Again, I get it from the bigger scale of the war and what they were what their thought process was, right? Hindsight 2020, I just think it's a nasty way to do it.
for crimes he did not commit, and questioning his faith in Christianity or religion and such.
I'm trying to think of that. I'd be like, so we could write at the history part about
Religious persecution?
and about.
It has happened in history, I've heard.
I think once.
Once.
I think there was a time. Well, you've done plenty of songs that had to do with religion-based things and stuff that turn up here and there and stuff. That's interesting though, the shift from Metalizer to the other stuff. When you think back to when you began to really focus on, was it just one day, or was it over a period of weeks and months when you thought this is just the way it's going to be, or did it just turn out that way when you started out?
Well, we had a few songs written before we actually went into album production with Primo Victoria, but I think that song was a bit of the start as well, because we had the music, me and Per sitting down to write the lyrics, and we thought it has a big sound to it.
Yeah.
We can't sing about booze and babes and
Yeah.
whatever with this song, so we decided that we were gonna do D-Day, something that mattered. And all of a sudden, things started clicking for us.
Yeah.
It made sense. I mean, we're interested in history, and there are enough bands singing about killing dragons and drinking beer. So we thought, well,
And babes, don't forget the babes.
don't forget the babes.
Yeah.
No, so it's we sort of let's make the whole album about military history.
Yeah.
And the more we got into it, I mean, it all made sense for us, because before that day, writing lyrics were sort of a necessary evil.
Okay.
All of a sudden, it became fun and interesting and engaging.
Well, that's cool. That's really cool. You found your mojo, I guess
Yeah.
you'd call it. But so
And that, to me is don't take this the wrong way, but the bright spot, right? Of them telling this story. And I say the telling of the story, not of what happened. I am still extremely furious. And that's not just of us doing it to them, it's them doing it. It's all of it. It's all just freaking BS. But for them to get that click of where, as Joachim said, it was kind of that it became fun again. And when you find something that's fun, it makes it easier to work. Such like with my channel, right? I mean, obviously they're getting a bigger message across than me just saying be kind to each other. But they're teaching stuff that cannot be forgotten so that we don't repeat it. And a lot of these stories, we've said, whether it was the Wehrmacht or No Bullets Fly, of just some of the kindness that's been shown, that it doesn't always have to be, looking someone in the eye and taking their life. And so, that is kind of the bright spot about them covering these songs. It does make you think, and you are going to feel emotions. But they're teaching things that we cannot forget so that we do not repeat. I'll let it finish out.
So when you're touring and stuff, do you ever play songs from Metalizer?
It has happened. I mean, it wasn't that long ago we did, was it 4 or 5 years ago? We did the song 7734. I think 3 years ago we played in the Netherlands, and Frederick, I think it was from Bloodbound, joined us on keyboards, and we played Hellrider, which is a song we haven't played in 10 years at least.
Really cool. How does the audience react to that, though? Do they know that album as well as some of the others?
Well, depends, actually. With the song 7734, we had that re-recorded on a special edition of, I think it was the Heroes album, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And then people had heard it, of course, because it was, released again, and re-released. But the Metalizer song was, Hellrider, yeah. We played in Netherlands. No, I would say 50% of the crowd at least were going, okay, what are they playing now?
Does that disappoint them at all? I mean, when I see a band I like, I don't expect to know all of the songs. In fact, I prefer not to know all.
it is. It's or you win some, you lose some. It's a really tricky thing when you're writing a set list. You can't only play the most expected stuff because if you keep doing that, you're playing the same show over several tours. So we always try to throw in some, curveballs because we know some people might lose interest or might not be into that song or might not know that song.
Beer?
Yeah, but they go get a beer, go for the toilet or whatever. Yeah. But it's so amazing to see, the eyes of the hardcore fans, the ones who really.
Like, no way. No
man,
way.
I never thought I heard this live.
They probably got their phone out. And they're not even filming. They're like, Dad, you're not going to believe it. Remember when, when I told you there was this band that I really liked, and I said, they do all these songs about military history, Dad, and you love military history, and you said, I'll check them out. And then you picked up Metalizer, and you said, what the hell are you talking about? Well, they're playing one of the songs that you wouldn't be interested in. Never mind, Dad. See you at home. See you. So there were a lot of those phone calls in the Netherlands that night. So there were a lot of Dutch people talking like this.
This.
It was ongelooflijk. That's one of the few Dutch words I know.
Okay.
I know it because the Incredible Hulk is die ongelooflijke Hulken.
I think I remember a few, something about take your pants off and put them on your head and noken in the coke.
But here's the thing. If you said that to the Hulk, because it's the Hulk, he's not known for his intelligence when he's the Hulk, right? He might be so surprised, he'd be like, yeah, okay. Yeah, and then he'd take his pants off and put them on his head. And then you could see what the Hulk is actually packing.
Well, you heard it here first.
This channel goes to some freaky places sometimes. I'll tell you that.
From carpet bombing to Hulk.
So I'll say, I'm actually, I guess, things happen for a reason because I wasn't thoroughly enjoying the video at this point, because to switch from that to kind of go to the lighthearted, I was very, very worked up. I maybe one day I can get that recovered. I still have it. So y'all can see it, because man, I was livid. Now I'm able to take a breath and just think about things more. And it's one of those downfalls of a reaction channel is you do truly get a reaction from somebody. And sometimes it's not, a good reaction. I was pretty angry this morning. Now, I wasn't to the point of yelling and screaming and throwing things. It was more of just that internal thought process of how could we do that? And now I think about it now, and I'm in there 2 minutes, so I'll say this now. Now I think about, yes, it was happening on both sides. It was, you do this to us, we're going to do this to you, and this and that. And all of it's wrong, right? That's the biggest thing I can, it's all terror, right? Strategic terror. If you're not going after a military installation, in my mind, again, just me personally, that's terror. Innocence, whether you believe they're innocent or not, that's not for us to decide. We're not their maker. Let them be judged by others, not by me. I don't want that on my hands. It's just my motto. And so to see that we resulted to that, again, I get the retaliation and the revenge, like I said. Just, man, I'm so glad that, and I know they've got other songs that are a little, probably cover some dark stuff like this, but yeah, I want some more lighthearted stuff.
Carpet bombing to Hulk and what he's packing.
Yes.
All in one episode. That's what you get on Sabaton History. But I didn't realize, when I did realize that this was the last of the regular songs, I've been, as I was talking to Para in one of the episodes we were doing today, I've been enjoying perhaps more than the regular songs doing bonus tracks and preludes and things that people don't expect and stuff, because then we have to really think more about the story behind it, and you guys think more about what do you want to say about it and stuff. And
and especially the specials, or the deeper dives, looking at the other perspectives. I liked Soldier of Three Armies, with 3 episodes,
that was cool.
And especially with those, there is enough time that I learned so much more.
Yeah. Well, me too. Well, I didn't know very much about L'Oreal and Tony, so it's good to.
So many new things there. So yeah, Still not too late. We are gonna keep on existing in some way,
Yeah,
some form, somehow.
Yeah, we're not done yet, so we'll tell you when we're done.
Yeah.
Don't you run away. Don't worry. But for us today, though,
Yes.
that is it for us this time.
That's Sabaton history.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, you know the drill. You click, 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 get some subscriptions, check out Indie's other channels, become a Patreon. That's it. Get the fuck out of here.
That always will bring a smile to my face. I actually laughed at that this morning when I hadn't about everything else. You know, let me switch it up and close it out. When it's one like this, you know, you do have to kind of take a breath, right? Because you are dealing with history. This isn't something that happened yesterday, right? This was decades ago. And something that obviously we've learned some things from. I think at its core, there's still a lot of things that we need to learn so that we don't destroy our own existence and our own evolution to come. You know, whether we do that or not, I don't know. Whether that's in the cards for us or not, I don't know. That's where I've got to take that breath, and that's what that allowed me to do, you know, thankfully, of hearing this and internalizing it and having that gut reaction of anger, you know, because a lot of the times when you do a reaction, you're seeing that for the first time, and you're going to be thinking about, especially with Sabaton music and having such a disaster or a catastrophic event that they're talking about impact you, and learning something that you didn't know that can infuriate you and make you angry and just really piss you off. I was pissed off this morning. There's no other way to put it. I was pissed off at, you know, thinking about what was done in Hamburg. And I was thinking about what was done to, you know, London and some of the other cities mentioned. I was thinking about Pearl Harbor, Nagasaki, Hiroshima. All of these just throughout history is where my mind was going, and getting so irritated with people because it's just an unnecessary evil sometimes. And I get it. It's war. But I'll always have that stance of, you know, take a breath, think about what your next step is, and do the right thing. So there was a whole range of emotions on this video. You know, maybe one day I can get that back. I've got some programs I'm going to run it through to try to recover it and see if I can do it that I didn't try. Mainly because I was trying to get the kids off to school. I have work meetings, etc. So I didn't. So now that's us all settled down, I'll try it. If I get it out there, you'll see it. You know, I'll label it differently, but just let you know that I'll try to get it out there. My reaction is still the same. I'm still upset. You know, I'm still worked up right now. But at the same time, it's a perspective thing. This didn't happen yesterday. You know, can we prevent it from tomorrow? That's not something I can answer, but you know, it drives me more just to say to people, before you lash out in anger, try to understand the situation and what can be done to resolve it. I understand defense and I understand like that, you know, but in personal conflict, just try to be kinder and just understand, you know, we all have to get up and put our boots on tomorrow, right? Or our shoes or slippers, whatever you wear. We all got to get up and put them on. And all we want's a better tomorrow. You know, it's what I love about seeing the comments from people all over the world that now I consider, you know, y'all friends, right? We're all friends sharing music, and y'all are watching me respond to that music for the first time, or the history for the first time. And that's the beauty, is we're from all over the world. And, you know, some of you have heritage in Germany and have even spoken out about it, right? We've had people from America and, you know, Mexico and Portugal. I've seen Spain. I've seen, you know, England. You know, I've seen Sweden. I've seen, you know, Netherlands. I've seen it from all over the world, from the Ukraine, from Russia. And we're all getting along and we're all bonding. And that's, I guess to me, that's just what it comes down to. This one still bothers me. It really does. And I know it shouldn't in the sense of because it is history, but I truly fear, if you want my honest opinion, that we're headed for something like this again at a grander scale because of this extremism that we're seeing in the world today. And, you know, so my message at all is if that ever happens and we're still doing the channel is, it's not me. I'm here for peace. I'm here. Let's just get up and enjoy tomorrow. Let's not, I don't need to swing anything to say, ooh, I'm bigger. That's no. I don't need what you have. You don't need what I have. Let's just be, right? Let's just bond and enjoy life. Anyway, what an episode, man. I gotta pick carefully on the next one because this one really got me, and it rightfully so in the sense of the topping of what happened. There should be an outrage there, but yeah, it just got me. Anyway, I did not realize it. 24-minute into 50. My apologies again. I rambled a lot in this one, but it really got me. I love you guys. I'm not going to do the notifications and all that, but you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share, comment, all of those things. Love y'all. I'm out.